Welcome to End Time Prophecies. If you have been following this series, you will know that we have taken the view that the events that are mentioned in the book of Revelation happen according to the sequence given therein. In this sequence, the bowls follow the trumpets. But before the bowls, we consider the 7 visions that come in between. After the 7th trumpet has been sounded, John was shown 7 visions of what must happen before the first bowl of God's wrath is poured out on the earth. The first vision was of a woman, a child, and a dragon.
Now a great sign appeared in heaven. A woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a garland of 12 stars.
This description fits Israel.
Then being with child, she cried out in labor and in pain to give birth.
This is the nativity, the birth of Jesus Christ.
And another sign appeared in heaven. Behold, a great fiery red dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 diadems on his heads. His tail drew 1/3 of the stars of heaven and threw them to the earth.
This is Satan cast down with his rebellious angels to the earth. This happened when the 5th trumpet was sounded. This is described more fully later on in this chapter.
And the dragon stood before the woman who was ready to give birth, to devour her child as soon as it was born. She bore a male child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up to God and his throne.
This speaks of the birth, crucifixion, and the resurrection of Jesus Christ, and later on how he would rule in the millennium.
Then the woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared by God, that they should feed her there 1,260 days.
After the completion of the trumpets, there is a period of 3.5 years, the second half of the tribulation, when Israel will be kept safe from the dragon for that period of time. The second vision is war in heaven and war on earth.
And war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels fought with the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought, but they did not prevail. Nor was a place found for them in heaven any longer. So the great dragon was cast out, that serpent of old, called the devil and Satan, who deceives the whole world. He was cast to the earth, and his angels were cast out with him.
This describes in more detail casting out of Satan from heaven with his angels. This happened when the 5th trumpet was sounded, and he was given the keys of the bottomless pit, with which he opened that abode and released the lustful angels who were kept there as in a prison to torment the unrepentant.
Then I heard a loud voice saying in heaven,
Salvation and strength and the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ have come. For the accuser of our brethren, who accused them before our God day and night, has been cast down. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they did not love their lives to the death.
Some of these are the Christians who were left behind in the rapture, and the others would be those who came to have faith in the Lord during the first half of the tribulation.
Therefore rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and the sea, for the devil has come down to you, having great wrath, because he knows that he has a short time.
This happens in the second half of the tribulation.
Now when the dragon saw that he had been cast to the earth, he persecuted the woman who gave birth to the male child. But the woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness to a place, where she is nourished for a time, and times, and half a time, from the presence of the serpent. So the serpent spewed water out of his mouth like a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away by the flood. But the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed up the flood which the dragon had spewed out of his mouth.
This happened during the bowls of God's wrath.
And the dragon was enraged with the woman, and he went to make war with the rest of her offspring, who keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ.
These are Christians who have been left behind at the rapture. The third vision is of a beast that emerges from the sea. The sea represents people. This beast is of the people, elected by the people. This is the man of perdition, the authoritarian leader elected by a democracy.
Then I stood on the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rising up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his horns 10 crowns, and on his heads a blasphemous name. Now the beast which I saw was like a leopard. His feet were like the feet of a bear, and his mouth like the mouth of a lion.
We are reminded of the beast in the book of Daniel.
The dragon gave him his power, his throne, and great authority.
It was in the first half of the tribulation, during the trumpets, that Satan, the dragon, gave the man of perdition his authority.
And I saw one of his heads as if it had been mortally wounded, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world marveled and followed the beast.
After the 7th trumpet is sounded, the man of perdition is mortally wounded, and his place is taken in a mock resurrection by the Antichrist. This is Abaddon or Apollyon, the chief of the lustful angels of Genesis chapter 6, who has emerged from the abyss when Satan unlocked the door of the abyss in the 5th trumpet.
So they worshipped the dragon, who gave authority to the beast, and they worshipped the beast.
Who is like the beast? Who is able to make war with him?
And he was given a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and he was given authority to continue for 42 months. Blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name, his tabernacle, and those who dwell in heaven.
This period is the second half of the tribulation, during the bowls of God's wrath being poured out on the earth.
It was granted to him to make war with the saints and to overcome them.
This is the time when everybody is asked to take the mark of the beast. Refusal to do so is certain death.
And authority was given him over every tribe, tongue, and nation.
The Antichrist will rule over a one-world government.
All who dwell on the earth will worship him, whose names have not been written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. If anyone has an ear, let him hear. He who leads into captivity shall go into captivity. He who kills with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints.
There is a dire warning for individuals and also for nations. Who kills by the sword must die by the sword. Who kills by a gun must die by the gun. Who kills with a bomb must die by a bomb. The nation that kills with a nuclear bomb shall die by a nuclear bomb. The 4th vision is of another beast emerging from the land. He is often referred to as the false prophet.
Then I saw another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb and spoke like a dragon.
He poses as the Lamb, pretending to be Jesus Christ reborn. This is the third person of the unholy Trinity, Satan the dragon, the Antichrist, and the false prophet.
And he exercises all the authority of the first beast in his presence, and causes the earth and those who dwell in it to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed.
The false prophet persuades people to worship the Antichrist by performing all kinds of miracles.
He performs great signs, so that he even makes fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men.
Like Elijah did.
And he deceives those who dwell on the earth by those signs which he was granted to do in the sight of the beast.
This is the great delusion.
The coming of the lawless one is according to the working of Satan, with all power, signs, and lying wonders, and with all unrighteous deception among those who perish, because they did not receive the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And for this reason God will send them strong delusion, that they should believe the lie, that they all may be condemned who did not believe the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness.
Telling those who dwell on the earth to make an image to the beast who was wounded by the sword and lived.
We are reminded of Nebuchadnezzar and his golden statue, which he wanted everybody to worship.
He was granted power to give breath to the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause as many as would not worship the image of the beast to be killed.
This is just before the first bowl is poured out on the earth.
He causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hand or on their foreheads, that no one may buy or sell except one who has the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name.
At this time, it's still possible for some to refuse to take the mark of the beast. Of course, they will be beheaded, but they will be a part of the harvest that is to follow.
Here is wisdom. Let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. His number is 666.
The fifth vision is of a lamb and 144,000 who have the seal of God on their foreheads.
Then I looked, and behold, a lamb standing on Mount Zion.
The lamb is Christ Jesus, who was slain before the foundations of the world.
And with him 144,000, having his father's name written on their foreheads.
These are the Israelites, 12,000 from each tribe, that were sealed when the sixth seal was opened, and before the rapture.
And I heard a voice from heaven, like the voice of many waters, and like the voice of loud thunder. And I heard the sound of harpists playing their harps. They sang as it were a new song before the throne, before the four living creatures and the elders. And no one could learn that song except the 144,000 who were redeemed from the earth.
These are taken up into heaven by Jesus, as was the case for Christians through the rapture.
These are the ones who are not defiled with women, for they are virgins.
Contrast these with Samson, who was a Nazarite in the Old Testament. And the meaning of the Nazarite in the Old Testament was an unpruned vine. In the New Testament, they are pruned vines, bearing fruit for the Lord.
These are the ones who follow the Lamb wherever he goes. These were redeemed from among men, being first fruits to God and to the Lamb. And in their mouth was found no deceit, for they are without fault before the throne of God.
The sixth vision was proclamations of three angels.
Then I saw another angel flying in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach to those who dwell on the earth, to every nation, tribe, tongue, and people, saying with a loud voice,
Fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment has come, and worship him who made heaven and earth, the sea, and springs of water.
The first angel announces the everlasting gospel. Fear God. This is different from the gospel we are under now, which is of grace. It appears that the law, the gospel of the law, will come into force at this time.
And another angel followed.
Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she has made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication.
The second angel pronounces judgment on Babylon. We'll take this up when we come later to the judgments in this series, End Time Prophecies.
Then a third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice,
If anyone worships the beast and his image and receives his mark on his forehead or on his hand, he himself shall also drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out full strength into the cup of his indignation. He shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. And the smoke of their torment ascends forever and ever, and they have no rest, day or night, who worship the beast and his image, and whoever receives the mark of his name.
The third angel announces the judgment that will come upon followers of the Antichrist, which is the wrath of God.
Here is the patience of the saints. Here are those who keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. Then I heard a voice from heaven saying to me,
Right. Blessed are the dead who die in the Lord from now on. Yes, says the Spirit, that they may rest from their labors, and their works follow them.
These are Christians who are left behind at the rapture. They believe in Jesus as their Savior, but not as Lord. They will not accept the mark of the beast, and they will be beheaded during the bowls of God's wrath. The seventh vision is of a harvest and also of a gathering.
Then I looked, and behold, a white cloud, and on the cloud sat one like the Son of Man, having on his head a golden crown, and in his hand a sharp sickle. And another angel came out of the temple, crying with a loud voice to him who sat on the cloud,
Thrust in your sickle and reap, for the time has come for you to reap, for the harvest of the earth is ripe.
So he who sat on the cloud thrust in his sickle on the earth, and the earth was reaped.
The harvest is of the saints who were beheaded earlier. Jesus reaps this harvest. This will happen before the first bowl of God's wrath is poured upon the earth.
Then another angel came out of the temple which is in heaven, he also having a sharp sickle. And another angel came out from the altar, who had power over fire, and he cried with a loud cry to him who had the sharp sickle,
Thrust in your sharp sickle and gather the clusters of the vine of the earth, for her grapes are fully ripe.
So the angel thrust his sickle into the earth, and gathered the vine of the earth, and threw it into the great winepress of the wrath of God. And the winepress was trampled outside the city, and blood came out of the winepress, up to the horses' bridles, for 1,600 furlongs.
This is the gathering of the grapes of God's wrath. These are the followers of the Antichrist. This will happen at the very end of the 7 bowls of God's wrath.